What's up, guys? I was just looking at the YouTube, it's been about 5 months since the last van update, and a lot has happened in the past 5 months, to say the least. I tried to make this update last week off the top of my head, and I had to write it all down. There were so many events that happened, things that transpired, that I was like forgetting things. I got to write this all down, and being a crazy long note in my iPhone, looking back at everything, it reminded me of everything we went through to get to where we're at today, and I'll hop right into it. I say about a week after we got the van, I noticed a little slight hesitation. We would accelerate, just a little stutter almost. Nothing crazy, just kind of in the back of the head. My neighbor happens to be a lifelong mechanic, so I went over to him. I said, I got this issue with this van we just bought. What do you think? He's like, let's just go ahead and do a tune-up. Spark plugs, wires, a new cap and rotor. We'll do an oil change. We'll do a transmission drain and fill, get a new filter in there as well, and we'll see if it fixes it. 'Cause we attacked that. We didn't end up doing the transmission drain and fill, but we did all the plugs, all the wires, the cap and rotor, and oh my God, this van, what would typically take like probably a couple hours to do in a regular car, double, triple that, because in a van, everything is just shrunk into this small engine bay. There's a doghouse. If you've had one of these vans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You got to be a contortionist to get your arm in certain areas to pull plugs, get that boot on the wire. We got it done and we went to fire it up. The van wasn't starting. Turns out we had it in the wrong firing order. So that took about I think it actually took another day of just like thinking of what's going on until we found out what the problem was. Got it in the right order, fired it up, big celebration, like we did it. Oh my God, it took way longer than it should, but we're here. So now it's time to go for a test drive. Drove it for a couple days, everything's good. Symptoms started coming back. Started to be a little more aggressive than they were before. And also what would happen is every once in a while, especially getting out of like second and third gear, the RPMs would start to surge, which was really concerning. You're thinking transmission issue, what the hell's going on? Every possibility runs through your head. So after that, I decided, let me take it up to AutoZone, maybe get a reading on it, if there's any codes. I get up there, and that's when I learned that our van is a 95, and anything 95 and older, you need an OBD1 reader that these places don't carry. And I do some research. I find like a $30 reader on Amazon, order that, it gets here the next day, start reading codes. The main code I was getting was a 654 code. It was saying that the van was not reading that it was in park. Everywhere I was reading online was saying that means the test was done wrong. To do these tests, you have to be very precise on what you do, especially when you're doing an engine running. And I did it to a T. 654 code also could mean there could be something wrong with the manual lever position sensor, which is what tells the van what gear it's in. You could just get down some crazy rabbit holes. Anyways, I got an EGR code, a couple other codes. Next thing I saw to do was to check the transmission fluid to see if it's low. Did that, it was a little low, so I got some fluid, added that to it. Did drive pretty good for a little while, then the symptoms returned. Some advice to just go ahead and take it up to the transmission shop. We have a really good transmission shop in town. They couldn't get it in for a week. So for a week, more research, trying to find a needle in a haystack, asking people while I wait and stress about the fact that it could be the transmission. So I drop it off a week later. Those 2 days were so stressful. You're just worried like, oh my God, are we gonna have to get a whole new transmission? You read all these horror stories about people that get all new transmissions and the problem doesn't go away. And all these forums that I'm reading, especially with these old Fords, one bad sensor can cause so many symptoms, so many transmission symptoms that make you feel like you're losing your transmission. All the while, it could just be like a $15 sensor. You're just like, oh my God, mine's spinning out of control. I don't know what I'm doing. This is all new to me. Everybody I talk to just says, keep pressing on. So anyways, get a call back from the transmission shop. I gave them a very descriptive list of all the symptoms, all the codes, when it happened. I was trying to give them everything I could possible to help them come up with some sort of diagnosis. Get the call back from them. They said all signs lead to a misfire. So good news there. They said, get that taken care of. Hopefully you don't have to come back and see us, because anything at the transmission shop is going to cost you a lot of money. Vibes were really high after that. Oh, and I forgot, actually, back when we were waiting a week to get it into the shop, my neighbor suggested, let's just go ahead and do the drain and fill in the transmission, see if that helps. That was fun. We did it in the driveway. I got so much oil in my hair. The neighbor was laughing at me. He said he's been through that multiple times. It's like a rite of passage. And after we did the drain and fill, put a new filter in there, all the oil looked nice and clean. Good for a drive, and it drove so good. Fired up. The neighbor, he was like, man, I'd take this thing to Georgia right now. The next day, the symptoms returned. Another gut punch. So anyways, transmission shop said to misfire handle and go from there. So I'm thinking, man, we did all new plugs, all new wires. What could it be, you know? Found a shop up the street, talked to him, he took it for a drive. Of course, on that drive, the van acted amazing. That's what they say, no symptoms arrive when you try to show somebody, and that's exactly what happened. This guy used to work for Ford for like 32 years. He said there could be so many things that could be causing this. He gave me about 4 things to do to try to help my problem. Just go to a scrapyard, get all the parts you can, start replacing, use OEM parts. He also said he'll be there anytime if I need to ask him a question. Super helpful. He pretty much sent me on my way. Come to find out, not a lot of people want to work on these older vans. One thing he did say to replace was the IAC valve, which is the idle air control valve. He said that can get sticky. After talking to some people after the fact, probably wasn't the problem because it was idling fine. And all the symptoms were happening while I was driving. But I did end up replacing that, which was more of a pain than it should have been. But got it done, took it for another drive, didn't fix the problem. We continue on, was recommended to a shop down the street, took it to them within about 30 seconds of talking. He said, I don't have anything to read that van. He sent me down to another shop. I was sitting there for about 2 days. They came back and told me, sounds like it's a wiring issue, but we don't work on that. So he sent me down to their wiring guy, down to him with all the symptoms. Got a call from him the next day. He said he did a vacuum test on it. He said you have a leak around your EGR valve. He said, I'm not sure if that's going to fix your problem. I have to address that because it's going to cause other issues down the road. I said, go ahead and do it. When I picked it up a week later, the guy said the engine sounded really good, but he said it sounded like it could be missing from time to time. So he said whoever installed the wires didn't organize them properly, which was me. I didn't know. So he gave me some dividers for the wires. He said, get that taken care of. That actually might fix your miss. And if that doesn't, come back and see me. So I leave the shop. Problems persist. Symptoms, all the symptoms were still there. I was stuttering like crazy. It was so depressing, especially after spending $600. The problem is still there. But I still had hope that if I untangled all those plug wires and got them organized, that maybe that would fix it. There was always one thing in my mind that kept me kind of going with hope. So I get home, organize all the wires, take it down the street, and the van is still acting up. Another punch right to the gut. I'm sure some tears were shed, but you keep pressing on. Started talking to friends more about it, read thousands of Ford forums, watched countless YouTube videos, and your brain is just spinning out of control. You don't know where to go, what to do next. It was a bit of a nightmare for about a month, really. All you could think about was, did we buy the wrong van? Did the person selling this to me know this? Could the transmission be bad? That still wasn't crossed off the list. You know, we only have so much money to spend on this van. We can't keep putting money into something that could potentially be, maybe this van is done. Maybe its life is over. And will the chase for the problem never end? And will you continue to put money into something without it ever getting fixed? I mean, every thought goes through your mind. We have a really big trip planned in May. We're kind of all in on this van, and we don't have the money to just go buy another van and lose out on the $8,000 now, gearing up to $9,000 that we put into this van. Like all your chips were put in and you just flopped. I don't know anything about gambling, but I feel like that's something that happens. Flop, is that a bad thing? Anyways, so over the next week, I replaced the VSS sensor, the MLPS sensor, did an oil change. Obviously, I knew the oil change wasn't going to fix it. VSS sensor was a really common thing that fixed people's problems instantly. Replaced that, drove it down the road, symptoms returned, another punch to the gut. MLPS sensor, same thing. People said, my van was surging, bucking, hard shifts, and I replaced the MLPS sensor. Do that before you do anything. It'll fix your problem. Of course, it didn't fix our problem. Just got used to the jabs, and after a while, you kind of lost hope that any of these things were actually going to change it. So something that I kept seeing was the PCM in these vans, as they get older, the capacitors will leak on the board, and that'll cause all kinds of electrical issues. I kept seeing that. Every time I saw it, it was like, that's over my head. I don't know anything about computers. Found a video, or I read a forum that broke it down pretty simple on how to get it out, and you could tell right away if your capacitors are leaking. Again, you read these stories of people, I fixed a $1 capacitor and it fixed everything. So I ended up pulling the computer out, which wasn't that hard, taking it apart, opened it up, and lo and behold, there was a capacitor that leaked wouldn't say everywhere on the board, but plenty and very similar to the pictures that I was seeing causing problems. So that was a big victory. I felt like I found the problem. Finally, there was something that I was actually seeing that was wrong and it needed to be fixed. I showed it to my neighbor, called Jess, fired up. Next step is, what do? Do you buy a refurbished one? Do you rebuild this one? Do you buy a whole new one? Most of the time, if you want to get it refurbished, you have to send it away. It comes back to you in a couple weeks. Well, luckily, we have a shop that actually rebuilds computers 45 minutes from us. Took it down there. They rebuilt it for $160. They look it over, a full rundown of what they saw, what they did, and I was feeling really good about it. It took them about a week to rebuild it. So once I got it back, put it in. This was the most hope we had in a while. Drove it down the road. The symptoms would never really show up until you got out of second gear. So I'd be driving through the neighborhood and everything's fine. And the big test was when I got out on the main road. Turn out onto your main road, nerves start going up, and sure enough, the symptoms returned exactly how they always been. Computer wasn't the issue. It was like the knockout punch, I would say. That was probably the most frustrating day out of all of them, especially when you really think you got it and you don't, and it just sucks all the life out of you. And the thoughts come up again. Over the next couple days, I kept researching, and I'm sitting on the couch one night, diving down forums once again, and every so often I would see people going through the same thing, mention, check your spark plugs, check your wires, and it's like, every time I'd see that, I'd think, oh, we did all that. Don't need to readdress that because we already did. For some reason that night, I saw something that made me go, you know what, I'm just gonna go out there. It's dark out. I'm going to take a spray bottle, spray all the spark plugs, see if there's any type of arcing. Who knows at this point? What does it hurt? Fire the engine up, take the doghouse off, start spraying the left side of the engine. All those were good. Go to the other side, spray cylinder 1, that's good. And as I spray cylinder 2, it starts sparking like a firework. It was another one of those, oh my God moments. I found it. And I run to get my neighbor. He comes out here in his boxers. I'm like, look at this, I found it. I'm so pumped. This has got to be the issue. I don't know why this happened or why this is happening, but this has got to be causing some issue. Everything I was reading, it said anytime you have arcing like that, that's going to cause a misfire. The research I found was that more likely than not, that's caused by the plug wire. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and replace these plug wires with some Ford racing wires from Summit. Everywhere I read said these are the best. They handle heat really well. Everything checks out. So I order those, replace all the wires, and it's still arcing. I wasn't super bummed about because I knew I could check the spark plug. This, of course, was the hardest spark plug to get to. I cut my arm up so much trying to get to this spark plug, and that'll come into play here in a second. So I pulled the spark plug out with all kinds of crazy extenders on it, and wouldn't you know it, it was cracked to all hell. I was like, how does this happen? What's the deal? I remember how hard it was to put these wire boots on that spark plug. I looked inside the boot, and sure enough, the little piece inside the boot bent to all hell. It wasn't on there properly. That's the only thing I can come up with, and it made complete sense because of how hard it was to get that boot on there. Obviously went ahead and replaced the spark plug, put the new wire on, heard the snap, drove it down the road, got out of the neighborhood, onto the main road, crossing my fingers, and sure enough, no more symptoms. I really can't explain the feeling, but it was elated, relieved, pumped, just over the moon, kind of in denial about it, didn't fully trust it. I knew in that moment something changed. I was ripping around the city, no problem at all. I was tearing up. I called Jess, told her, pretty sure I fixed it. I still couldn't fully say with 100% confidence that it was fixed just because everything we went through, but I felt really good about it. And sure enough, that fixed the problem. And it was due to me not putting the plug wire on properly. At first that might sound like, man, how hard is it to put a plug wire on? If you get one of these old vans, they are a pain in the rear to put plug wires on. To get to spark plugs is a nightmare, especially on, I guess that would be the right side of the engine. You have to go through the wheel well. I mean, it's a bit of a challenge, but you live and learn, and in that moment you're just happy that the problem is fixed. And I would say what kept us going through it all was thinking, this trip that we're about to go on, we need to know a lot about this van. We said this in one of the first episodes, but to go on a big trip like we're planning, you have to know kind of what you're doing if you break down on the side of the road. And before buying this van, we had zero idea. And I'd say we have about a fourth of the knowledge now, enough to, if we do break down, we could fix minor stuff. At least we have an idea of what's going on and not just sending it down the road on a potentially 5,000 mile trip with no knowledge of our van. If we do get to a mechanic, we can at least explain to him what's going on and work together versus just blindly giving our van to somebody in the middle of nowhere. So there was a lot of lessons to be learned during all that, to fully trust the process. Everything happens for a reason. How much we learned over those 5 months. Peace of mind grew, if that makes any sense. Because before, if anything happened with my car, immediate, I don't know what's going on, this is the end of my car. And now when something happens, panic is not the first thing that sets in. It's more of like, okay, well, let's see how we can get to a solution. And one last thing is learning to live in the unknown. And that's life in general. There was a lot of nights where there was just so much unknown, unanswered questions, no solution, and you just have to still live your life, a positive mindset, and keep pushing forward. And it is all meant to be. That's all you can really do is trust, have faith, and move forward. So with that being said, the van's running good. We're pumped. We're ready to finally start traveling in this van. Just so happened to be going up to Alabama to see Jess's family the day after Thanksgiving, and we say, what a great opportunity to really get this van on the road. So I get the van detailed, put a fresh coat of wax on it, fired up about this trip. On Thanksgiving Day, I was moving my van from our front yard into the driveway, and where I had the van originally parked was pretty much butting up against my neighbor's property, and he happened to be out there when I was moving it. Turned the van on, back it into the driveway, and as I'm putting it in park, neighbor comes running over. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, do you hear that? Do you hear that? I'm like, hear what? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be hearing. Again, this is all learning to me. I don't know what to listen for. He's like, you don't hear that little ticking? And I go, kinda. Where at exactly? He says, it sounds like you have an exhaust leak. And I go, what is that? Read about exhaust leaks. I don't know exactly what they are. After he explains to me that noise is not normal, it wasn't something over the top, but it was this subtle, like, the only way I could describe it is like if you were to drive a go-kart and it's just as you accelerate. Anyways, he was pretty bummed because we were going to Alabama tomorrow, and he was super excited for us to get this thing on the road, but he's like, honestly, I don't think you should drive it that far. It could cause more issues, and get the van addressed when you get back. I said, well, it is what it is. Again, kind of with everything that happened before, it wasn't that big of a shock to the system because you just kind of go, well, it'll get fixed and we'll move forward. So we get back from our trip, take it up to a shop that was recommended by a lot of locals. Probably should have took it to this shop in the first place, but hindsight's 20/20. You don't know what you know until you know it. So I hear back from the shop a day later, and they say you have a crack in your exhaust manifold. And that was exactly what the neighbor was thinking. They were going to have to replace the whole exhaust manifold, which is a big job on any car. And with this van, everything is made harder due to the size of the engine bay. Like, quoted us at $800, and I said, go for it. It's got to be fixed. Got a call about 4 days after they started that when they went to take the manifold out, the bolts cracked on the way out. And to fix all that, they were going to have to pull a cylinder head. Learning now, anytime you hear that, no, it's going to cost a lot of money. The quote went from $800 to $1,600. But everybody I talked to said that's pretty fair for what they're doing. It's a gnarly job. They take everything out, and it is what it is. We knew we were going to have to put some money into this van. That's exactly what we were doing. So they had it for a couple weeks. We had to take a deposit up the shop so they can continue to work on it. When we were up there, they showed us what was going on, the work that they were doing. And get this, the guy said, where did you get these plug wires from? And I said, oh, offline. He said cylinder 2, when I tried to pull it off, it was jammed, and the cap that clamps to the spark plug got stuck on there. I installed it wrong again. Unbelievable. But now it will be professionally installed. Could put that behind us. So Christmas happens. They still have the van. We leave to go back up to Alabama for New Year's. On our drive up, they call us saying it's done. It ended up being another $300 on top of the $1,800 that it was. So $2,100 bill. They said they had to fight with it for days, but everything was fixed and it's ready for pickup. After hearing that number, you just take a deep breath and move forward. So we get back from Alabama, go pick it up, and it's driving like an absolute dream. Sounds amazing, shifting incredible, all of the above. Even gave me the old exhaust manifold as a souvenir. Showed me exactly where everything broke off, where the leak was coming from, the whole thing. Those guys couldn't have been nicer, trustworthy, honest, all the above, everything you look for in a mechanic. So I was making this video before we went on our first trip in the van, but like I said, there was a lot to it. So I ended up making this after the trip. So we did go on our first trip, which will be in the next episode. So check that out and see how that went. It has been a wild last 5 months, but we're finally on the other side of all the craziness. And I'm sure there'll be more to come, but we're excited for it. We have a massive trip in the making. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't. See you back here next time. Thank you guys. If you have any questions at all, drop them in the comments. I'll see what I can do, see if I can answer any of them, help in any way I can if you're going through something similar. So, peace.